We are going to go ahead and get started with the Teach in Spain webinar for kind of the visa process for this. All right, so before we get started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Samantha Irwin, and I'm one of the coordinators for the Teach in Spain programs. Today, we have my colleague, Paige Willard, who's going to be helping us out today. You guys all probably have heard from us or maybe spoken to us or emailed with us, but it's nice to put some faces to the names. We've all taught abroad before, and we're super excited for this opportunity for you guys, and we're just excited to help you guys out because we've all been in your shoes. We totally get it. Today I will be presenting, and then Paige is going to go ahead and answer any questions that you might have through the questions box. So during the webinar, if you do have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. If it's something where we think will be coming up shortly in the webinar, we might wait off on it, or we'll try to answer some of the common questions out loud as well. And then of course at the end, we will go ahead and do some more Q&As for anything that wasn't covered in the webinar. Before we get started, I did want to take a quick poll and just see how everybody is feeling about the visa process. Can you go ahead and answer on the poll and just let us know how you're feeling? You're feeling prepared a little bit, not so much? Just curious to kind of see where everybody's at right now. So far, I feel like most of you are kind of in the middle. I've got a handful that are really prepared. I'm going to give it another couple seconds here and go ahead and share those. So it looks like about over half of you feel pretty good about it. So that's comforting to know. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So here you can see an example of what your visa will look like. The visa itself is essentially, it's going to be a sticker stamped into your sticker that's going to be located right in your passport. So just make sure you have a blank passport page available on there. With the passport, with the visa that you see, there are a few key things that I wanted to point out. So the first one is that it's only good for 3 months or 90 days. So you're going to see that in the upper right-hand corner. It says that it's only good for that long. This is very, very normal. So what will happen is once you get to Spain, you're going to have to apply for a residency card, but our staff are going to help you with that process. We will, schedule the residency appointment with you. We'll help you fill out the paperwork during orientation. We'll walk you through the whole thing. So don't worry if you see that it's good for only 90 days. You're going to apply for a residency card or a TA in Spain, and when you get that TA, that will be valid for the duration of your program. The other thing to take a look at is the dates and how they're written. So in Spain and most of Europe, you're going to see it as day, month, year. So if we're looking at this visa where it's saying that its effective date starts, it starts on September 16th. No. Yeah, September 20th, 2016. So you can kind of see the way that the dates are just a little bit backwards than maybe what we're used to. So keep that in mind too when you're looking at it. The other piece is the NIE that you're going to see. So I have seen a handful of visas that did not come with a NIE. Don't be alarmed if it doesn't have one. That's totally fine. Just let us know if you don't have a NIE on it. It's just part of the residency card process, but it's totally fine if you don't end up having one on there. But you will need it eventually, and you'll get it when you get to Spain. And when you are submitting your visa or your passport and your documents to the consulate, it usually takes about 3 to 6 weeks, depending on your consulate. And I can talk a little bit more about that as we get further as far as in the past, which consulates have taken how many days. So let's go over a quick overview on the visa process, and then we'll get into some of those specifics moving forward. So the first is going to be, in applying for your visa, is to determine which consulate's jurisdiction covers your address and to make an appointment with them if necessary. Not all of you have to make appointments. We can discuss this a little bit further in a moment, and you could also find more details in your Spain visa guide on pages 5 to 14. Next, you're going to want to make sure you've gathered all of the necessary visa application documents before your appointment. I would say it's safe to double check with the CIEE visa guide, but also with your consulate's website, because sometimes they make changes. We try to keep it up to date as much as possible, but they don't notify anybody when they make changes. So we try to do that. If for some reason you see something different, let us know, because we want to make sure everybody has the most accurate information. And then next, you will be attending your visa appointment, and you're going to turn in your application. The appointment itself is usually really quick. It's about 15 minutes. Those of you that maybe studied abroad before might be familiar with it. Usually they'll call your name. They might verify, they'll probably verify that you've brought all the right documents. They'll go through it. They might ask you a couple of questions, about your plans in Spain, and just let them know that you're there to be a language and culture assistant. As long as you've got all the required documents, there is absolutely no need to worry or be nervous about the appointment. I would recommend getting to the consulate just a little bit earlier than your appointment, though, in case there are any cancellations, and they can see you a little bit earlier. Likewise, though, I would keep in mind that they might be behind. A lot of consulates are understaffed, and so it's just really important to be polite and respectful of their time. You really want to be able to make sure that you're leaving a good impression on them. In case, if you go to the consulate and you forgot, maybe your medical letter wasn't signed, or you forgot something, a document at home, you want to make sure that you're being really polite with them, that you're looking decent. You don't have to wear a suit and tie, but, don't go in your gym shorts after a workout or something. Just look decent, and they're going to be more likely to help you out if you're in a pinch and you need something. So just make sure that you're being really polite to them. And remember, you're representing the United States or Canada, and you're showing that you're going to their country. And a lot of, workers at the consulates are native Spaniards, and so you want to leave that good impression with that. And then finally, after about 3 to 6 weeks after your consulate appointment, you can expect to receive your passport with the visa attached inside of it. Some consulates will mail back your visa if you include a self-addressed prepaid USPS envelope, USPS Priority Express envelope. However, I do know the Boston, New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco consulates will not mail your passport back to you, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on too. If you do have to pick up your passport for the ones where these ones I just mentioned, most consulates will hold your passport for up to 2 months. So when you get notified that your visa is ready and inside your passport, don't feel like you have to go the next day. Most of them will go ahead and wait hold it for about 2 months. I would try to only do it like a week or two, but worst case, you've got can rest easy knowing that. Just to kind of add on to some questions that I'm seeing, asking if you can bring anyone with you to your appointment. Sure, totally fine. I mean, maybe bring a parent or a friend or something. That's fine. They'll probably just ask for you when they call you up to the counter or the window. So just have you go up. But if you weren't going with somebody, that's totally fine. Okay, so let's talk about, what type of visa, back to the beginning, kind of what type of visa that you need, and making sure that you're applying for the proper one. Depending on your consulate, you're going to be applying either for a long-stay student visa or a language and culture assistant visa. The latter is a type of student visa. So when you're scheduling an appointment on the scheduling websites, a lot of times they may not say language and culture assistant visa. It might say student visa. Always, when in doubt, just click student visa. As far as the links to the paperwork on the consulate's website, that's when it's going to get more specific for whether it's a long-stay student visa or a language and culture assistant visa, depending on your consulate. Something I would keep in mind is that you're not applying for a work visa. It is extremely hard to get a work visa in Spain. So all participants, all language assistants through all different programs that are teaching in Spain, they all get student visas or language and culture assistant visas, again, which is a type of student visa. I do see some questions about appointments, and we'll get to those here in a little bit, and I'll share some more details on that too. First, let's just make sure we've got the right consulate. So you can see here a map of where your designated consulate is based on your state of residency. So you will need to prove that you have an address in this consulate, in your consulate's jurisdiction. This can be done with a valid driver's license or student ID or state ID. Some participants, you guys might be living, maybe you're from California, from Los Angeles, but you're going to school in Chicago, and you know Los Angeles is really tricky to deal with. So you want to go to the Chicago consulate? That's totally fine because you have your student ID that puts you there. For those of you, unfortunately, that have maybe lived in the same place, unfortunately, you are stuck with sticking with the consulate that you're at because they will require proof of that. So just keep that in mind. If you do get to choose, but if you are one of those luckier ones that get to choose between which consulate that you're interested in versus, whether it be a student visa or because you are a student and living somewhere else, let us know if you want some feedback on which consulate to choose. But I recommend, choosing a consulate that's easier to work with, seeing, does the consulate require translations? Will they mail my visa back to me, or do I have to pick it up? Just think about things like that. Appointments, how readily available they are. If you're stumped on it or you're not really sure which one to choose, just let us know or call us and we can go ahead and work that out with you. Okay, so let's talk about scheduling an appointment. I do want to see how many of you have already scheduled an appointment. So I'm going to go ahead and do another poll. And can you tell me if you guys have scheduled an appointment or not, or maybe you're at a consulate where there aren't, where they're not required, or I know a lot of you have been struggling with scheduling an appointment because your consulate's not offering one. So I just want to see kind of where we're at here. Okay, so I'm seeing mixed information or mixed kind of results from everybody. Looks like a big portion of you have not scheduled an appointment yet. Make sure that you're scheduling an appointment as soon as possible during the time frame on the screen. So it's really important because, as I'm sure another big portion of you know, sometimes they fill up super fast and it's super difficult to get an appointment. So book that as quickly as possible for the time frame suggested. For those of you that are having a hard time booking appointments, I know this is frustrating, and those have called me, you've probably heard this a million times, but just keep looking. Keep checking the website. There will be cancellations that are going to pop up. Usually they're going to pop up a little bit closer to when you're looking to go to the consulate because that's when people, they booked ahead and then now they realize they don't need those appointments anymore. So keep checking that. One of our fellow participants, Max, I'm going to give a shout out to you. Thank you. Also shared some really valuable information about the LA consulate. So the LA consulate at noon Pacific time each day is offering new appointments for 90 days out. So generically speaking, today is May 22nd. Let's say tomorrow, the 23rd at noon, the consulate would be scheduling or opening up appointments for August 22nd. So I know that doesn't work for many of you. For anybody that's in the basics program, book it. Book that August 22nd appointment if you can get it. And log in at 11:59, get ready to refresh that screen because when those appointments become available, they will get taken very quickly. So that's a little tip from the LA consulate. Thanks, Max. As far as the San Francisco consulate goes, that one, I know they're filling up as well. Keep looking for cancellations because they're more likely to pop up, which is really nice. And the San Francisco consulate's a little bit easier to work with and they're a little bit more responsive. So that's not too bad. And there's always other plans, there's always other contingencies that we can make sure. But I would say if you still aren't able to get an appointment by mid-June, then contact us and let us know. and we'll help you out and we'll kind of create a plan. Another consulate that I know that doesn't have appointments is the Boston consulate. So for those of you that are at the Boston consulate, they typically only show appointments 3 weeks out. So right now, you're only going to be seeing appointments probably into maybe the first or second week into June. And so keep looking for them. You're going to start seeing those appointments pop up probably early June for most of you. So check that out. I don't know, unfortunately, when they typically offer appointments, like when they open up the next 3 weeks. So just keep checking multiple times a day. I try to check on my end as well. So if I sign in one day and I see there's a bunch of appointments out, I'll try to email everybody just to let them know. Most of the other consulates should be okay. I know Houston is starting to fill up, but they're pretty laid back consulate to work with. If you're Miami or Washington, D.C., you don't need an appointment. So you guys are really lucky. You can just walk in when you've got all your documents. So I want to talk a little bit more about the time frames that we have on the screen. And I know for a lot of you, it feels a little bit stressful, especially because you haven't been able to secure an appointment at that time. But just try to stay within these time frames. The reason, there are a few different reasons. So one of them is that because most consulates are not going to allow or will not see you more than 90 days from your program start date. There are a handful of consulates that say that you can go up to 120 days in advance. If you're at that consulate and you've got all your documents, more power to you, go ahead and do it. But most are going to say 90 days. So make sure you're not visiting your consulate more than 90 days from your program start date, and that's partially why we've chosen some of these dates in the time frame. The other piece to keep in mind is some of the documents that you're going to need. 2 of them will be mailed to you from CIEE after you've confirmed your placement, and additionally, your letter of acceptance is going to be coming from the Ministry of Education. And if some of you have studied abroad in Spain or spent some time in Spain, Spanish bureaucracy is a little bit slow. And so we have set June 17th as the earliest that we recommend scheduling your appointment because that is when we can guarantee that you'll have your letters of acceptance by then. And many of you have already started to confirm your placements, and we are working really hard to get that information to the ministry and hoping that they're going to get documents sooner than June 17th. But to be safe, if you can, just try to book it at the earliest of June 17th. The third thing, is the end date. So depending on your consulate, it's going to take 3 to 6 weeks to process your visa. So you just want to make sure you've got some wiggle room, before when you're going to the appointment, to make sure that you've got everything before your departure for Spain. Another last piece, I apologize, I said this was the last one, but this is the really last one, is a lot of you are seeing the June 17. If your consulate has an appointment available for June 17, I don't always recommend booking that unless you know you are going to get everything you need in time. Remember, and we'll go through this, but there's a lot of documents you need for your consulate appointment. And so I know you're excited and you want to go as soon as possible, but you also have to make sure you've got your background check, you've got any translations done, you've got your medical letter, don't press yourself for time because you've got pretty decent windows. And so just keep that in mind. If you're scheduling it right away in mid-June, make sure you're going to stay on top of things. I know a lot of you are graduating, and so it's a busy time for you guys. So just keep that in mind. Another piece of advice for appointments, I don't recommend scheduling more than 1 appointment at a time. Consulates have been known to cancel them. If you schedule more than 1, they'll cancel both. So just be careful. So if you have an appointment in mid-August, but you found one for June, book the second appointment, but then cancel that original one that you had. So just make sure at one time you only have 1 appointment. Some are asking about, when you should book that appointment. I think no matter what, book your appointment now for the time frame. But if you haven't really started on some of the visa process, just book it at the later end of the time frame. But because consulates do fill up, make sure you're booking it. And I did see a question about, consulates that do not require appointments. Should you, book one, or can you book one? No. For the consulates like Washington, D.C. and Miami, they just accept walk-ins, and it's actually a really, really great process. I recommend for those ones to make sure that you're arriving early because some of those consulates have been known to turn people away at closing time, even if there's a line. So arrive early, get it out of the way, and then you've got the whole afternoon. All right, I'm going to see if there are any additional questions about the appointment process before we move forward. Some are asking, and I know because we're kind of getting close and consults are filling up, what if the appointment, for example, regular, the main Teach in Spain program, we recommend the latest you apply is July 22nd. But if you find an appointment for July 25th, book it. You'll be totally fine. It's just kind of it's a time frame that we can bend a little bit, but usually just check in with us if you're unsure, and we'll let you know if you're going to be okay. Processing times, I can share that a little bit. So the consulates, the Washington, D.C. and Chicago consulates were known to take about 4 to 5 weeks to process visas. So they are a little bit on the longer end. New York was processing visas. It was like a week or two. I'd say closer to 2, just to not worry after 1 week. So New York was about 2 weeks. Houston was about 2 to 3 weeks. And the California consulates, both Los Angeles and San Francisco, were processing visas in about 2 to 3 weeks as well. I think that's all the consulates. Oh, Miami. And Miami was a quick one as well. They were about 2 weeks. So really, most of them on average, let's say about 3-ish weeks to be safe, except Washington, D.C. and Chicago were the ones that took the longest. When your passport and visa are ready, most consulates will email you. I know the San Francisco consulate has a little portal that you can sign in to see the status of your passport/visa. But most will send you an email unless they're mailing it to you. Then you just got to keep an eye on your tracking number and check for it that way. Okay, so let's talk about kind of a general checklist of what we need for our visa appointment. I am going to go into further detail on some of these specific documents as we get further on in the webinar in the following slides. But for now, let's just take a look at some of the brief ones. Also, for everyone that has committed to the program, that has paid their commitment deposit, you have access to the Spain Visa Guide in the readings section of your My CIEE account. So make sure you're double checking and reading everything in there, because that's more specific details, but I'll try to go through as many general ones as I can today. Okay, so the first one is booking an appointment. We just talked about that. Make sure you're booking it now. Book it within the time frame we recommend. Washington, D.C. and Miami, you do not need appointments. Another thing you're going to need is the National Visa Application Form. So this one, each consulate, they're all pretty much the same, but each consulate does have their own link to it. So I would recommend maybe using that. There is a line-by-line instruction. There are line-by-line instructions on pages 29 and 30 of your Spain Visa Guide that'll tell you everything you need to fill out. And once you're offered a placement, you're going to get your program dates. And so then you can complete those as well. Some of them, I know one of the consulates, I believe it's the Chicago consulate, lets you type it in right into the PDF. Others you might have to print and type in, fill out. Just make sure you're using blue or black ink. And just to be very clear, I recommend using capital letters. But there isn't necessarily a requirement for it, but just makes it really clear and less room for mistakes. The next is an application fee for $160. All consulates will accept a money order, so you can do that. There are a handful of consulates that will also accept cash, and that is the San Francisco consulate will, Houston consulate, and the Washington, D.C. consulate will accept cash for them. Otherwise, all of them you need to bring a money order. Next is going to be your passport, and then a copy of the passport photo page. I recommend making sure that your visa or your passport is available until January 2021. And that's because some consulates require this, but then also in the residency process when you get to Spain, a lot of places you're going to require that your passport is valid at least 6 months past your program end date. So if your program is ending in the end of June, it's going to put you at around December. You know, January is a little bit safer. So we did our best when we reviewed applications to make sure everybody had a valid passport for the best duration, but always just double check on your end to make sure we didn't miss anything. And if you need to apply for a renewal immediately and probably get it expedited, but just check in with us if you have questions on that. The next piece, which we talked about a little bit as well, is the copy of it. Well, is your driver's license, your state ID, your student ID, and you're going to want to bring a copy of it as well because that's what they're going to save to hold on for you. But just make sure. So what matters, it's kind of funny. So it doesn't really matter what your current address is. They just care what's on your driver's license, what's on your student ID. If your student ID doesn't have an address, but it clearly says like Ohio State University or something like that, then that's clear enough to them that they're okay, you're a student, this is your jurisdiction, and they'll accept it. If it doesn't have an expiration date, you should be fine. But if you graduated like 3 years ago and you still have your student ID, I don't recommend using it because it doesn't. I just would hate for you to be in a sticky situation if they asked you a question and what didn't quite add up. So if you recently graduated, you should be okay. But if there is a validation date on it that it's your student ID is valid until, don't go after that. So keep that in mind. The next one are passport style photos. So this does not have to be the passport photos in your passport. It's totally fine. Just this passport sized, the passport style ones. I believe they're 2x2s. You can get them at your local pharmacy, at Walmart, at UPS, I think. I know the post office does them. There's so many places that will do the photos for you. For your visa appointment, depending on your consulate, you're going to need either 1 or 2 photos, and it's basically going to be paper clipped or glued onto your visa application form. I recommend, though, when you are going to go get those passport photos, get 4 to 6 of them because you're also going to need them when you go to Spain. You're going to need them for your residency card. You're going to need them for your transportation card. It's just nice to have them. You can get them done in Spain, but you know the process here, and it's simpler, and you're going to have it ready, and it's just better to do it. So 4 to 6 total, but for the purpose of your visa appointment, you only need 1 to 2 passport photos. And remember, just passport style photos. Just jumping back a little bit about the driver's license, the ID doesn't have to be in color. I mean, it just show them your original ID, and it doesn't have to be a color copy. That should be fine. Just the address is really what they're looking at. Somebody asked about the residency cards because they have mentioned them quite a bit. Those are something that we'll totally work on when you get to Spain. We'll help you through the process. Don't even need to think about it now. Just some of these things that you can prepare for when we do start working on that is just to start thinking about it with the passport photos and things. The next one is a medical letter or medical certificate. I'm going to talk more in depthly in this in a few slides later to help you out with that a little bit more. But the most important thing to remember, if you're going to remember anything, is make sure that it's on your doctor's letterhead, that it's signed by an MD or a DO. Unfortunately, consulates will not accept a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant. They just won't do it. So just make sure it's signed by an MD or a DO and it's on their letterhead. And also just make sure they're putting the MD on there. I've had people that didn't, and I, to be honest, I don't know if they'll have an issue, but if I know that they've turned away people with nurse practitioners, so I know that it's going to be safer to go ahead and just make sure they have the MD or the DO piece on it. Some of the consulates, something worth mentioning is that some of the consulates do require translations. The Miami and Los Angeles consulates are the only ones, I believe, as of right now, that require translations. And the nice thing is they have templates. So if you use the template, there's an English version on top, a Spanish version on the bottom. As long as your doctor is willing to sign both versions, you don't have to pay for a translation. That is your translated copy. If you're unsure whether or not your consulate requires translations, there's 2 ways you can look at it. Look at your consulate-specific checklist, which is located at the end of the Spain Visa Guide, or you can check your consulate's website, or you can ask us as well. But I do believe it's only Miami and Los Angeles that require them. The next one that you're going to need is the FBI background check with the Apostille attached, and I'll also go more in depth about this in the following slides as well. Some consulates are going to require translations. The Boston, Miami, and Los Angeles consulates require translations. And I mentioned I will go further in it because the Los Angeles consulate is also very specific on what they require for their translation, and we can talk about that in a little bit. The next piece that you'll need is your official letter of appointment. The Community of Madrid is going to give you digital access to this. So now that many of you have confirmed your placements, we're sending your details over to the Community of Madrid. They're preparing your documents, and basically what will happen is you're going to receive an email with access to their online portal. You're then going to create an account, and then within a few days, within a week, depends on how long they take, your carta, or your letter of appointment, or in Spanish, your carta de nombramiento, will be available to you to download on their portal website. You just have that, you download it, print it in color, and you bring it with you to your appointment. Once we know that these are becoming available to participants, we'll let everyone know. Right now, the ministry is still working on things, so I can guarantee that they're not ready yet, but they will be soon. The next one is going to be a proof of health insurance. CIEE is going to mail this to you. Unfortunately, if you are a Canadian citizen, INEX is not covered. It is only for U.S. residents, and so you will have to provide your own health insurance. However, you do receive a discount on the program fee for having Canadian citizenship and not having access to INEX. So if you have not been given the discount for that, please email us and we'll make sure you get that. The proof of health insurance piece paper will be in Spanish, so a lot of consulates might require translation, so we're going to send it to you directly in Spanish so you don't have to worry about it. We'll also be mailing you a proof of financial means letter. It'll talk about, getting paid the €1,000 a month stipend, what program you're in, program dates, passport information. It'll include all of that as well. And your official letter of appointment will also talk about your monthly pay as well, the stipend. So between the two of them, both of those will pass for that requirement in your application. And then finally, some of the consulates, as I mentioned, will give you a self-addressed return envelope. It depends on your consulate. So the Boston, New York, and Los Angeles consulates will not mail your passport back. I'm so sorry, but you do have to go. You have to go there to drop off your visa stuff, and you have to go there to pick it up, unfortunately. There is an exception with the San Francisco consulate. So the San Francisco consulate also does not mail your passport and visa back to your home, but they will mail it to the Washington, I think it's in Bellevue, Washington, their honorary consulate, where then you can pick it up there. So if you live in Oregon or Washington, it might be a little bit closer to drive there versus going all the way back to San Francisco. And finally, make copies of everything. So most of the consulates are going to require one copy of everything for your appointment. So not only do you have your originals, you've got one copy of everything. All of that goes to the consulate, and they're not going to give any of it back to you. So we recommend making a third copy for yourself. You have worked so hard to get these documents. You've put a lot of time and a lot of money in them. So just make copies of them and keep it for yourself, because you never know when you're going to need it again. And then lastly, there are a few additional documents that you're going to be needing depending on your consulate. So San Francisco, they require a screenshot of intended flight itinerary. There is a sample example of it in page 16 of the visa guide. It's silly, I know. I don't know if they just want to know you know how to book a flight, but I don't know. But it is a silly thing, but they do require it, so just make sure you have that. I don't recommend necessarily purchasing your flight. It doesn't have to be the flight you're actually taking. Just a screenshot that you knew how to search it is fine. The Los Angeles consulate also requires a signed disclaimer, and the Boston consulate has a supplemental visa document that you have to fill out as well. And if you need help filling that out, just email us and we'll give you a step-by-step guide for that. Somebody had asked about the CIEE letters, the proof of health insurance, and the financial means letters. We'll email or mail those to you by post in probably a couple of weeks. I'm hoping early June. The first week in June, we'll have those all prepared for everybody. As I mentioned, there is a consulate-specific checklist on pages 20 through 28 of the Spain Visa Guide, so make sure you're checking that out. And so let's dive a little bit more into some of the specifics. So the first one is the background check. Before we go ahead and get started in talking about the background check, I want to just kind of see where everybody's at. So I'm going to open up a poll and see how many of you have applied for a background check. The background check is a very important process. Most consulates will require either a state level or an FBI level. I know the Chicago consulate specifically says FBI background check, so I would make sure that you're getting an FBI background check. And the FBI recently released a very easy way to get a background check, and so we strongly encourage everybody just to get an FBI background check because it's going to cover all the states. It's just going to be a lot simpler, and the process is pretty streamlined, which is good, and it's pretty affordable. So it looks like over half of you, about a third of you have applied for your background check, but half of you haven't. So that 50% of you guys, listen up, because you really need to be applying for that background check now to make sure that you're getting everything in time, because there are additional pieces to the puzzle with that. It's not just applying for a background check, it's applying for documents that go with the background check. So make sure you're doing that very soon. So let's kind of dive in with the background check. So there are a variety of different background checks that you can get. You can get a state level, an FBI level, and you can even get like a county level background check, like a local level one. Consulates will require a state or an FBI, with the exception of Chicago, which specifically states FBI. We strongly recommend everybody to get an FBI background check. As I mentioned, the FBI offers a quick way to get your background check, so it's pretty cool. They streamlined that process. I did it myself to create the step-by-step guide, and I got it all done within like 2 weeks. So it was pretty convenient and pretty nice. I hope it's the same for everyone else. So the FBI background check, it's going to cost $18 if you go through the portal, the step-by-step guide directly through the FBI. It'll cost $18 to apply for the background check, and then you just pay for the cost of your fingerprints, and that's just going to depend on your police station, on your live scan location. Just depends on how much they charge typically per card. For example, we live in Portland, Maine. I went to our local police station and they charged me, it was $15 for the first card and $5 additional for each card. So I spent $20 to get fingerprints, $18 to apply for the background check. I mean, it was really quite affordable when you think about it. Some of the processes can be a little bit more expensive. So definitely recommend doing that. When you are getting your fingerprints done, though, for the background checks, you have to actually have a fingerprint card filled out. When you're getting your fingerprints done, there's two options. So one is going to your local police station. A lot of police stations, they're going to either have ink, the traditional ink ones where you're doing that onto the card, or they're going to have a live scan machine that you can use where they'll basically print your fingerprints on the card. The one I went to, they printed my fingerprints directly on the card. I didn't have to get them all inked up or anything, which is really nice. But not all police stations will offer that. Just depends. If you're doing the actual ink version of your background check, they're actually, using the ink to put your fingerprints onto the card. I recommend having at least 2 of them done just in case there are smudges, because it gets really picky when it's running through the machine at the FBI offices. So just make sure you've got 2 copies if you're doing the ink ones. If you're doing it on a live scan machine, it tells you whether or not it was an acceptable print. So they'll know if it was a good one or not. I recommend calling ahead or looking at your police station's website. So, for example, our police station here in Portland, Maine, I looked on their website and they only offered fingerprinting from like 9 to 11 a.m. Monday to Friday. So I knew I had to go there in the morning. I couldn't go there after work. I was limited on that. So just check in so that you're not making, a bunch of additional trips for it to get it done. I have run into a handful of participants where their police station didn't offer fingerprinting. So in that case, it's totally fine. There's other options. You can go to a live scan location. When you go to a live scan location, be careful. So most live scan locations are locations that are going to expedite the process for you. They're going to basically give you your results right away, but they usually charge a lot more. On the other hand, there are also the same live scan location may also just do the fingerprints for you and maybe charge you, $20 and they'll print it on the card. So just check in with them and see if it feels like the process is too complicated to do it the traditional way through the FBI's website and you just want to go to a live scan place, maybe pay the $60, $70 to get it done. That's totally fine. As long as you're getting that hard copy of your FBI background check, you can continue the steps for the apostille process. So don't worry there. If you're unsure which way or which process to do, just reach out to us, just call us, email us, and we'll be able to help you out. Sometimes if you're going to a live scan place or you're getting fingerprinted, they may ask for for a number, like an agency number or an ORI. You don't have one. Just let them know that you're applying only for yourself. It's a personal background check for your visa. There is no employer. It's for you. So if they ever ask, that's what it's for. You don't need one. So the fingerprints are needed to apply for a background check. So you have to get fingerprinted, and a lot of the consulates actually require that you get fingerprinted for your background check. So if you're going through the FBI process that we have in the visa guide, you're starting the process online, and then you're mailing in your fingerprints, and then they're running those results and sending them to you. The results. So where do you send your background check? Make sure that your background check is being sent to you, not to anyone else, not CIEE, because when you get your background check, you have to apply for an apostille. So just make sure that you're having the background check sent to you. I also recommend on page 17 of your Spain visa guide, there is the step-by-step process for fingerprints or for getting a background check. It's a separate link to a separate document, but it talks about the step-by-step process to make sure that you're doing it properly. So when should you apply for your background check? I recommend doing it, I would say anywhere from 45 to 90 days before your visa appointment. You want to make sure that your visa documents, all of your visa documents, namely your background check and medical certificate, are dated less than 90 days from your visa appointment. If it's more than 90 days, the consulate's not going to accept it. So I know many of you are maybe a teacher in the past and you had to get background checks each year. You can't use it from last year. It has to be dated less than 90 days from the date of your visa appointment. So keep that in mind. So that's why we're saying within 45 to 90 days. I put 45 days as the latest that you should apply for your background check because it takes about a week or two for it to process. And then when you get that back, you have to apply for an apostille, which we'll talk about here shortly. So just make sure that you're doing it within a reasonable amount of time. And so when I did the poll and 50% of you said you hadn't started on your background check, do it now. And if you're not sure how to do it, if this still feels confusing even after the webinar, email us because we really, really want to make sure that you have everything done on time, and we're happy to help. A handful of consulates do require translations of the background check. The Boston, Miami, and Los Angeles require Spanish translations. I've had past participants successfully use the translation service that's on the screen. There is an exception for the Los Angeles consulate, so they are very, very picky. I'm so sorry if you have to go there because they are one of the strictest consulates that we have to work with. So the Los Angeles consulate requires that you go through their list of sworn Spanish translators. There's a link to these translators, Spanish translators, in your Spain visa guide and on the Los Angeles consulate's website. The other piece to that is also make sure that you're bringing a copy of your background check to Spain. So what you'll have to do is anybody that's working with students, they have to get a background check in Spain. And so you're going to be giving your teachers on the first day of school, you're going to hand them your background check for them. So make sure you're getting a copy. If you're going through the visa, or pardon me, the background check on the FBI's website with the step-by-step guide like we have suggested, you're going to get a digital version of your background check. Just save that digital version. I believe it expires on the portal after 90 days, so make sure you're downloading it and saving it on your computer. Just print that off and bring it to Spain with you. That's all you need for it. That'll suffice for your school. For your visa appointment, you have to have that hard copy background check, and we'll talk more about the Apostille here in just a second. Don't forget to check on page 17 of your Spain visa guide for more details on the background check as well. So with your background check, once you get your original background check back from you, it's going to have a signature on it. It's going to be all set. You're going to have to send it off to get an apostille, which is essentially an international notarization, but you don't have to do any additional notarizing. It's just going to be this apostille, which I'm going to talk about here in the next couple of slides. But once you get your original background check, it's already going to be signed. It's going to be mailed to you. It's going to be, that is official. And then let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about the apostille process. First, here's an example of what your background check should look like when it comes back to you. So as you can see on the bottom, there's the signature that you're going to see on it. It'll have your date of birth. It might have your social security number, or the last 4 digits of your social security number on it. But basically, this is exactly what it should look like. This is sort of an example of mine, and it had just a cover sheet on it. So it should just be 1 page long. If you do have some minor things on your background check, it's okay. Most consulates are pretty lenient. I'd say as long as you've got 1 or 2 minor things on your background check, you're still going to be fine. Keep moving forward with the process. If you've got some more severe things or more than 2, please let us know and we'll check in with it, because I would hate for you to go through the whole process just to be denied because of something so simple. So make sure you're reaching out to us. Okay. So the apostille. Before we get started on the apostille process, I do want to check in and see, it looks like about 30, according to today's webinar, about 36% of you have applied for your background check. So of you guys, let's see how many of you have actually applied for your apostille. Okay, so it looks like a majority of you haven't started with the apostille process. That's totally fine. I am going to back up real quick, back to the background check. For those of you that have the Los Angeles consulate and have to go to a sworn Spanish translator, it's an interesting process because their list of translators, it's just a big list of a bunch of people with a bunch of random email addresses. So I suggest reaching out to about 3 people, if maybe 3-4 people, and just emailing them, letting them know that you need to get your background check and apostille translated for your visa appointment. Sometimes they don't respond, and that's why I suggest reaching out to more than just 1, because if you're waiting, you reach out to 1 person, you're waiting a week, that's a week wasted if they don't respond to you. So email a couple and see what they say, or if they respond. Basically, you should just be digitally sending your background check to them, like a scan of it to them, they translate it, they send it back to you in a scan. You shouldn't have to send the original to them. Okay, so let's jump back to the apostille process. So those of you that have applied for your background check, or when those that are applying for their background check, when you get it back, you have to get an apostille. An apostille is essentially an international notarization. It's saying it's notarizing that document so that it's available, that other people know, that other organizations in other countries can see that it's a valid document for you. So the apostille is basically you have your original background check. You're going to mail your original background check off to get the apostille. If you've applied for the FBI background check, which is what we recommend, you're going to have to request an apostille at the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. If you look at page 18 of your Spain visa guide, you're going to see this step-by-step process on how to apply for that apostille. It's a link to a separate document, but take a look at that. Once you get that paper copy of your background check, you're going to apply for the apostille by mailing in a request form, a payment, the document that needs to be certified, which is your background check, and a return envelope. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for your background check with that apostille attached to be returned to you in the mail. It is $8 to get the document authenticated, plus the cost to mail your background check to the U.S. Department of State and the return postage. That $8 is per document, not per page. So if you get your background check back and it's 2 pages, 3 pages long, it's just per document, which the background check itself is considered one document. So all you have to do is send $8 there. Altogether, it's probably going to cost you maybe $20 if you're adding in all of the cost of the document, the cost to mail your background check, and then the cost of that prepaid envelope. It's only about $20. I definitely make sure that you're getting tracking on your prepaid return envelope because you spent a lot of time and money on your background check. You just want to make sure you're making sure that it's getting back safely to you. I would mention that you want to keep in mind that the apostille, basically it's a separate document that's like grommeted on top of your background check. Under any circumstances, do not remove those, because if you remove the 2 documents from each other, they become invalid, or the apostille becomes invalid. So you don't want to do that. If you're making a copy, fold over the top, make the copy, and fold it back over. Just checking to see if there are any additional questions about the apostille process. It's really not too bad. It's just an extra step, but as long as you're following the instructions in the Spain visa guide, you'll be totally fine. If you have to get translations, I recommend waiting until you have both the apostille and your background check, and then send those off to get translated if it's required for your consulate. For the copy of the background check that you need to bring to Spain, it does not have to have the apostille on it. The copy that you bring to Spain is just the copy of your background check. You don't need anything else with it. But for the purpose of your visa appointment, that has to have the apostille attached to it. Here's an example of a returned background check with the apostille attached. So you can see on the left image, that was the front cover of the document that I received back, which is the apostille under it. And you can see when I made this copy, I just folded it over. I didn't remove it whatsoever to make that copy. So that's what you're going to want to make sure you're doing. Also, when you're sending in the documents for your apostille, it's okay if you have to fold your envelope. I had gotten like the rectangular priority mail envelopes, the cardboard ones. I had put all my documents in there, and then I had bought another envelope. I just folded that cardboard envelope in half and stuck it in the envelope. And when my documents came back to me, they were still clean. They weren't wrinkled. They were just fine. I would say the processing time for all of it, so your background check, I'm going to say as long as you're on task with getting your fingerprints and everything, that takes about 2 weeks. And then the apostille takes a little bit longer to process, probably about 2 to 3 weeks. So I'd say all in all, it's going to take you probably about 4 to 6 weeks to get all of that. And that's why you want to make sure you're starting it now, because I know a lot of you scheduled those visa appointments for mid-June. So you've got to make sure you're on task and you're getting caught up with the process. So one of the other more complicated documents that you're going to need for your visa application is the medical certificate or a statement of good health. So depending on your consulate, there isn't always a specific form for it, but it does have to have specific wording on it. You can see on the screen where it says, what should the letter say? It has to include that. So I recommend just using the example for your consulate. Some of the consulates don't show the examples, and so there is one on page 18 of your visa guide. This medical letter, as well as your background check, cannot be dated more than 90 days from your consulate appointment. So most of you, if you're applying for it now, you should be fine, or you're visiting your doctor's office, you should be fine. You want to make sure that it is signed by an MD or a DO. Unfortunately, they will not accept a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. And you also want to make sure it's on your hospital's letterhead. I have had participants that have been able to use like their physician's stamp on top of there if maybe their hospital didn't have a letterhead. You should be able to do it that way as well. If you're ever in doubt, I always recommend just reaching out to the consulate just to be safe with it. There are a few consulates that require translations. As I mentioned, the Miami and Los Angeles consulates require Spanish translations. If you are one of those consulates, and you can use the template that is in your visa guide or on the consulate's website. And if your doctor is willing to sign both the English and Spanish version, you do not need to pay for a translation. That will count as the original. One thing to note is that this medical certificate or statement of good health is different than your CIEE physician's report form. So when you're scheduling your doctor's appointment, there are two documents that you need to get. One is the medical certificate that is for your visa appointment. That one you submit to your consulate. The other one is the one where it has, it asks for like your general overall health, it asks about immunizations. That's the one that you're going to want to upload to your MyCIEE account. So you're going to have two forms, just one to your consulate, one to CIEE, and it's just for us to have a general medical history on you in case anything were to happen while you're in Spain. Finally, you might be wondering, what should you do if you don't have a doctor? Unfortunately, I really don't have a good answer for this one. You're going to have to find a way to see a doctor. It's a requirement for the visa. I recommend, if you don't have a doctor, schedule an appointment now at your local hospital and just let them know, the documents that you need to have filled out, because some doctors, if they don't really know you, it's your first time seeing them, they might not feel comfortable filling out your documents. And so you want to make sure that you've got enough time before your visa appointment in case this happens, to either give them time to get to know you, to look up your records. Don't wait till the last minute to do this. I do know, usually maybe some slightly larger cities, but a travel clinic. Most people that don't have doctors and have to go somewhere, a travel clinic has been just fine. If you're going to like an urgent care, I don't know if they'll do it, to be honest, but if they will, that's fine. It doesn't have to be your primary care doctor. It just needs to be a doctor that's willing to sign it and stating that you are healthy enough to travel. I'm going to answer a question about the background check process, just to jump back just to some of the questions that are coming up for the webinar. So when you're applying for your background check, you are going to get a digital version and a hard copy version mailed to you. When you get the digital version, you can get an apostille on it, but it costs a lot more money. So I just recommend saving the digital version to print off and bring with you to Spain. But you're going to get, within a week, you'll get a hard copy mailed to you. The hard copy is the copy that you use to get your apostille. Some of you are asking, how do you get in touch with your consulate? So in the Spain Visa Guide, there's an email for each of the consulates on how to go ahead and reach out to them. that way. If you're unsure about your medical form, and you can always send a copy to us and we could take a look at it and let you know what we think. If we're unsure, then, it might be best to ask the consulate, but we're also, happy to help out. Some are asking about a stamp, like what kind of a stamp for the medical certificate. So a lot of doctors should have one, basically, and it should say like their name, their, MDDO, probably their hospital's name, basically identifying them and stuff like that. So they should all have a stamp that they can put onto the medical certificate after they sign it. And then if they don't have letterhead, they can put that stamp at the top, but most hospitals should have it. I really recommend making sure it's printed on their letterhead. And here's an example of the medical certificate, like the templates that you'll find. You'll see the English version on top and the Spanish version on the bottom. The sample template is in page 18 of your Spain visa guide. If your consulate doesn't require translations, you just need the English version signed, but if it does, make sure you're getting both. If your doctor's unwilling to sign the Spanish version and it's required for your appointment, you're going to have to pay to get it translated, unfortunately. Okay, so there are a couple documents that CIEE are going to be providing for you. You don't really have to worry about them. As long as you've confirmed your placement, then we can we'll go ahead and start working on these for you automatically. And when we send them out, we'll let you know. So the first one is, and something to keep in mind, most of you that are listening in should have already confirmed your placement. Those of you that maybe have received a placement, we cannot start working on these documents until you've confirmed your placement. And confirming your placement means that you've checked the box next to your placement and that you've paid the remaining program balance. If you haven't done that, we can't start on these documents. And these documents take a couple of weeks. So just make sure that you're being aware of that and you're working on them. So one of the documents is the letter of appointment, or as I mentioned before, in Spanish, it's called the Carta de Nombramiento. And this is going to be available to you, I'd say, within a couple of weeks here, starting in early June. So roughly two or so weeks from confirming your placement, but that's going to be starting in June. So those of you that may be confirmed this week, I'm just going to have to wait another week or two here before we can actually get all of that done to you. And this basically, what you're going to do after you've confirmed your placement, you're going to get an email with access to an online portal directly from the Ministry of Education. It's probably all going to be in Spanish. So once we know that this email is coming out, we'll let everybody know. I recommend printing it out in color just to be safe, and you're going to bring it with you to your consular appointment. When you get this letter, you're going to want to double check some things. Make sure that it has your legal first and last name on it. It has your passport number, your correct passport number, and your nationality on it. For those of you that are dual EU citizens, make sure that it's got your EU country and passport number on that. It's also going to have the name of the school that you're placed at. Double check all of this information. And do it right away. Don't wait until a day before your appointment or a couple of days before your appointment. Check it as soon as you download that document. Make sure, because if there is something that we need to change, we have to notify the ministry. And as I mentioned before, Spanish bureaucracy can be just a little bit slow sometimes. So we can't always get you the updated document in a day or 2 days. It's going to take some time, and we have to notify people to work on it as well. So just make sure that you're double checking everything right away and not waiting until the last minute. If the address or your name or your passport number, anything in your CIEE account, that's what we're using to send to the ministry. So if any of that is inaccurate, please let us know. At this stage, for most of you that are confirmed, don't just make the change on your CIEE account. Let us know as well. Because we have another system, a way of tracking everything, and if you change something in your account, we don't get notified of it. So to ensure that we have the most up-to-date information, email us the information that's changed, whether it be, new passport or something like that. The other documents that we'll be working on for you is going to be the proof of health insurance and proof of financial means letter. So these letters we're gonna mail to you starting in June. I'm hoping the first week in June is when we'll actually be mailing everything out. And basically they're going to be letters that will be entirely in Spanish. We're going to automatically send these to you. So as long as you've confirmed your placement, you're automatically going to get your letter from the ministry, and you're automatically going to get your proof of health insurance and proof of financial means from us. These letters, like I mentioned, they'll be sent in Spanish, so you're not going to need to translate them in English. You don't need to do another translation. They'll be able to just be brought to your appointment for you. They will also be notarized. Your proof of financial means letter will be notarized as well. So again, and when we send these, we'll notify everybody and we'll include tracking. So if you don't get it, let us know right away, within like a week of us sending it. Don't wait until a couple days before your appointment, because that means we have to, re-prepare the letters, mail them out to you. We can't get them, immediately to you. So just make sure you're staying ahead on everything and getting everything in time. I want to take a look at a quick checklist as a reminder of everything that we went through today that you're going to need for your appointment. As I mentioned in your Spain Visa Guide, there is a step-by-step process for everything, and it goes through it all. Actually, before we move to the Q&A, I would actually like to see how many of you have actually scheduled a doctor's appointment and kind of started that process. It would just be helpful to kind of see where we're at. Okay, so it looks like about a third of you have scheduled your your doctor's visit, but about half of you haven't. So just make sure you're scheduling it, because a lot of times, remember, doctors' offices, sometimes they fill up and they're not going to have appointments available for a few weeks out. So call now, schedule it before your visa appointment to make sure you're getting those letters ready. You just want to make sure that you're not going to your consulate unprepared, or if you go to your consulate and you don't have everything, you're going to have to set a new appointment, and it just kind of goes downhill from there. So just make sure you're on track. We're here to help you. If you have any questions, if you want to call us a couple of days before your visa appointment, we'll go through it all with you. We'll line it down. Do you have A, B, C, D? Okay, did you double check this? Is this signed? We'll definitely do it. We're super happy to help you out with that, and we're familiar with the process. And even if we're not, we'll try to give you the best advice, or give you the resources to find out the proper answer. There are specific checklists for your consulate on pages 20 through 28 of the Spain Visa Guide as well. I'm going to open it up now to kind of a Q&A. Any questions that maybe weren't answered during the webinar, let us know through the questions box. Paige is going to continue to be answering questions as well, but any commonly asked questions that I see, I'll go ahead and answer them out loud. So anything that wasn't answered, please let us know. What are you still looking to learn, or confused on, or want to know about the process? Things might come up later today after, and so if you do have more questions, email us or schedule a call. I apologize for a lot of you. Probably were really trying to get a hold of us this past week, and we were, really busy with placements, trying to answer everybody's questions and calls. So it's always really safe to just schedule a call with us, because then you're going to have dedicated time with us and know that we're going to be there to chat with you. Myself, Hillary, and Paige are all happy to do it. And so we definitely recommend that, but also try to email us. We try to get back to everybody as quickly as possible within a day. As a reminder, we are in the office from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday. We're not here on the weekends, and so if you email Friday afternoon, it's going to take a little bit to hear back from us, probably on Monday or so, but just keep that in mind. But we definitely want to help, and so we'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. I am seeing some questions go through. So I have a question about how long can you stay in Spain after your visa expires? So your visa, or when you go to Spain, your residency card, it's going to be valid for the duration of your program. Your program essentially is going to go until June 30th, 2020. And so once your residency card expires, you're essentially going to be in Spain as a tourist using your passport. So you should have an additional 90 days in Spain after your visa expires. Someone's asking, so if I'm starting from square one, what do I do first? What should I be working on now? The first thing I would say is schedule a visa appointment if it's required if your consulate requires it. Schedule that as soon as possible. The second thing you should be working on is getting your FBI background check. So call your local police station, look on their website, do something to figure out how to get fingerprinted, complete the online process for the background check, and schedule a doctor's appointment. So 1, schedule a visa appointment. 2, start a new background check. 3, schedule a doctor's appointment. If you're doing anything, those are the top 3 things I recommend doing right now. Someone asked about a translation service in Boston or for Boston. We've had past participants, and I can go back and show you the one on the screen here. So rev.com/translation. I've had past participants use this. I can't vouch for it myself, but I know past participants have successfully been able to get translations through this site. They're certified or verified, so they should be fine. So take a look. They're also in the link to them is also in the Spain Visa Guide as well, so you can always go back to this. Oh. What should you be working on if you can't schedule an appointment? So if you haven't been able to schedule an appointment, you are going to want to be working on the background check and working on scheduling the doctor's appointment. Just because you can't get an appointment doesn't mean you can't be working on everything else, because the appointment will come eventually. For those of you that have confirmed your placements, we will be having a Facebook group very, very, very soon, and we'll be giving everybody access to that has confirmed their placement for the program, so that you can start interacting with each other and getting to know your CIEE peers. Someone's asking, a lot of you are out of the country right now, probably traveling, probably trying to get your visas in other countries. It's totally fine if your doctor's note is from outside the U.S. The only thing with that I would mention is that a lot of consulates require that your background check that you're getting a background check from all countries that you lived in for more than 6 months. Consulates don't usually ask this at all. So if you've studied in Spain for a year, you don't have to get it. But if your doctor's note or your documents are it's obvious that they're from somewhere outside the United States, then you might need to consider doing that as well. So kind of weigh the option. Is it better to get a background check in that foreign country, or should I just try to go visit a doctor in the U.S. so it's from there? So for the fingerprinting card, someone's asking about the fingerprinting card for your background check. Where do you get it? A lot of police stations will have it. They just might charge you for it. Like I said, they might charge you like $5 a card or something for it. If they don't have it, then you're probably going to have to order it online. There is a link in the step-by-step guide for the background check. In that document, there's a link to like an Amazon folder or purchase that you can go ahead and do that and get it that way. That'll be your best bet for the fingerprint card. But call ahead and see if your police station has it. They likely will. any additional questions? I definitely want to try to help as many people as possible today. Obviously, you can always follow up with more questions later on, but we just want to make sure that we're getting all your questions answered. While others are inputting some questions, I want to check in and see, did I confuse everybody more, or did we help them out? So let us know how you're feeling about the visa process now that you've learned a little bit more as far as what you need to be doing, what to expect in that whole process. Okay, so it's comforting. It looks like most of you are feeling better about it, so that's really, really good because that's our goal. I'm seeing some additional questions about, so someone did look at their website and their police station doesn't provide fingerprint cards. In that case, go to in the step-by-step guide for the FBI background check. There is a link to where you can order 3 fingerprint cards. It's like $3. So it's super cheap. You can order the cards, bring them to the police station, have them fingerprinted. Some of you, I mean, some of you, especially with the fingerprint process, it might not be as easy. I think, I lucked out that I was able to do it right here in town for the purpose of preparing that guide for you guys. Sometimes you might have to go to a bunch of different places. You might have to call a bunch of different places. And I'm sorry if that's more frustrating for you. In that case, kind of just weigh it out. Maybe it's worth it to pay a little bit more to go to a live scan location and just get my background check given to me, and I don't have to worry about the hassle of doing all these extra things. But if you're maybe trying to save a little bit more money, then go through the FBI's website. So there's lots of different options, but if you are having a bunch of, some struggles getting those fingerprints at your police station, just let us know, and we'll make sure, we'll try to help you out and kind of talk about what's the best option. For those of you that applying for their background check now, but they've got their visa appointment, in mid-June, I would say you're going to be okay. So as long as everything works out well with your background check, you would be getting it here in a week or two. It'll take you another couple of weeks to do the apostille. I think you'll be okay. Let us know if you're still worried about when your appointment's scheduled and how much you still need to do, and we'll kind of help time it out for you. Any other questions? I'm going to leave it open for a few more minutes just to see if we can get any more questions. I want to make sure we're answering as much as possible for you guys. Just remember, you can go ahead and reach out to us anytime, send us an email, schedule a call with us, anything like that. You can see the information on the screen, so just let us know and reach out to us. But thank you, everybody, for joining today. We hope this has been helpful for you. Anything we weren't able to answer through verbally through here, or maybe through Paige, typing everything in, just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you tomorrow morning. It's about 8:30 p.m. here in Portland, so we're going to head home, but we'll be here first thing tomorrow morning and be able to help you guys out. So we hope it made you feel a little bit better, and have a great night, And this is a really exciting process. It's totally worth it in the end. So, keep your head up if you're stressed because you're going to have such a great time and it's totally worth it. So we're excited for you guys. All right, everyone, take care.